the train for us at all times, as there are obstructions and closed clearances along our line, and we don't want anyone to get hurt. Please do not stick any belongings outside the windows, as if they were to fall, the Strasburg Railroad is not responsible for the retrieval of the items. If you have opened any windows, please make sure they are securely fastened with the latch. We don't want any of our windows to drop down onto your hands. The moment the train departs our station, you will no longer be allowed to walk between cars, stand on our platforms, or leave the train at any time, unless directed to do so by a member of the train crew. Our equipment is very old and deserves the best of treatment, so please help us by keeping your shoes off our seats and cushions. If you would like to put your feet up, we ask you to go ahead, kick your shoes off, leave them on the floor, and you can put your feet right up. Trash receptacles are provided in every car, so please do not throw any trash from the train. We wish to keep the beautiful Lancaster farmlands to stay the way they are. Please keep the aisleways clear for us at all times, so this way members of the train crew can freely walk through the train. And finally, there is no smoking or vaping on board our train today. Angela 90 has been doing it for well over 100 years, and she'll be the one doing it for us today. Without further ado, please have your tickets out and ready for members of the train crew to come and inspect. All aboard.
Do they do something special for Christmas every year? Christmas in July. We're gonna see them like one day. It's just not all day, like just one time.
I just want to do the food that they have in there.
Oh, high tea. It's a social. It's an English social.
Oh!
It's not dinner and it's not lunch, but a real tea has a lot of food. Yeah, we get dinner. There's a lot of fruits and stuff too, but there's a lot of sandwiches, sometimes soups, chips. Sometimes.
That sounds good, actually.
You'll get the
Isn't that like the classic cream of that?
Welcome to the Strasburg Railroad's Civil War days. As we begin our journey, let's talk a little about where we're going and what we'll see. Wars are always fought in somebody's backyard. For most of our war between the states, that meant the South. But in the early summer of 1863, when Lee's Confederate Army of Northern Virginia poured into Pennsylvania from behind the screen of the Blue Ridge Mountains, it was our turn to bear the brunt of the fighting, right here in the breadbasket of the North. The war had raged for 2 years already. It wasn't supposed to last nearly that long. But superheated by decades of sectional hatred and finger-pointing, what began as a family feud over slavery and the Union quickly flared up into a truly epic calamity with a terrible life of its own. To end it once and for all, Lee's army fanned out across 4 counties, streaming east along every dirt road they could find. Their goal was to capture Harrisburg, Philadelphia, or, best of all, Washington City itself. They foraged everywhere for food, horses, firewood, and even silver and gold. There with the Federals on July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd in a bloodbath that doomed the South's quest for independence. But what if Lee had reached the bridge intact and continued his march east across Lancaster County? In that case, he might have been cornered, and the fate of the Union decided right here in the countryside between Strasburg, Paradise, and Lemon Place. To see for ourselves what that could have looked like, our train ride today is taking us back in time to the very spots where the armies might have clashed. We'll see in Confederate gray John Early's command of regiments from Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, and points south. And in Union blue, under Lancaster's own John Reynolds, units from Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, Maine, and Wisconsin. Here we go. Stay alert. before 3 days of ferocious fighting turned into a slaughterhouse.
Put in their forward horses.
As you eye the rifle muskets on those soldiers' shoulders, they're single-shot weapons. Shoulder to shoulder. Deliver any significant volume of fire. Unfortunately, those close order formations made them as you hear the report of cannon fire, be reminded that in 1863, those were the days long before smokeless gunpowder. Each cannon fire, each rifle volley sent up a plume, a cloud of choking white smoke. The great danger of skirmish tactics, as you see the Federals facing west, that open as the battlefield grew more and more obscured by smoke, it was easier, dangerously easier, for soldiers to become disoriented and isolated from their units. Another reason for fighting shoulder to shoulder, as visibility got worse and worse.
Let's go, boys!
Just a safety reminder to all of our guests on the train today. While we certainly understand you want to get the best view possible of today's battle reenactment, please remain inside your car. Do not step out onto the end platforms unless, of course, you're on the end open air car up by load 90.
Volume there is.
In battle engagements like the one we're witnessing now, these field pieces in the artillery units, they would not be firing solid shot or cannonballs at each other. They would be firing explosive charges. Shell, which would have been an empty, hollow, gunpowder-filled iron sphere that fragments as it exits the muzzle. That would rain shrapnel down on the enemy. That was shell. Then there was grape shot that would send a cloud of iron balls at the enemy. And at close range, canister shot. Canister, imagine a coffee can packed with lead rifle bullets. Close range canister was fired by cannon to create a deadly shotgun blast into the face of the enemy. In 1863, infantry on both sides, Union and Confederate, would have been firing 58 caliber rifle muskets. It was possible for a well-trained infantryman to fire 3 shots a minute. A 58 caliber compared to most calibers, 58 is pretty big. They don't make that big of a hole going in, but oh my, what they do coming out, that is another story. war between the states, as we're witnessing now, casualties were staggeringly high, killed and wounded. Largely because battle tactics had not yet caught up to the new technology of a rifled shoulder arm for infantry. The battle tactics, the close order wheeling and maneuvering, the battle tactics still in use in the 1860s dated back to the Napoleonic era over a half century before. In those days, muskets were smoothbore with poor accuracy and short range. But with the innovation in the 1850s, the melee ball, a cone-shaped ball with an expandable base, when that bullet was introduced, and muskets were manufactured with rifling, gentle spiral of grooves down the barrel, that improved both the accuracy and the range of the weapons carried by infantry. But the close order formations, to our eyes, the in-your-face close ranges on the battlefield, continued until toward the later years of the war, 1864 and 65, newer, more open field, open order tactics were developed. The Civil War battlefield was a deadly schoolroom for developing a new generation of battle tactics. Spectators among us might notice the odd detail that none of these soldiers, blue or gray,
That's how I gave it.
has their bayonet fixed to the muzzle of their musket, as they certainly would have if this were the summer of 1863. That is simply a safety precaution common in the whole Civil War reenacting hobby, because it is entirely too easy for mishaps to occur if these reenactors did in fact have fixed bayonets as their ancestors most certainly would have. There may not seem to be many soldiers on the field right now, and you might be a bit surprised by that. After all, the Union Army of the Potomac numbered at this time 90,000 soldiers in all three branches of the service: infantry, artillery, and cavalry. And the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia, under General Lee, they numbered 75,000. Yes, but as we mentioned earlier, those two armies, although they were rapidly moving toward each other, and we see each of their vanguards running into the army in front of us right now, those armies were spread out over miles and miles, trying to get here and concentrate their forces as fast as they possibly could. But they were mostly on foot. Communications in those days were primitive, to say the least. The quickest way to keep track of rapidly moving military forces was by mounted courier. Yes, that means a man on a horse. And warfare in 1863 was a strictly two-dimensional proposition. There was no aerial reconnaissance, no remote controlled weaponry, no drone ordnance. In fact, except in a few rare instances, not any balloons to get above the battle action and the smoke to actually be able to monitor troop movements. Armies in those days traveled blind, with the exception of mounted scouts. Well, at this time, folks, if you did get out of your seats, please return to them at this time for safety's sake. states, and when Kansas came in, 34. 11 of those formed the Southern Confederacy. The total population of those 34 states in those days was only 31 million. If you've been doing some mental math in the last few moments, that means with only 31 million people in 34 states in 1863, compare that with about 340 million today in the 21st century in 50 states. By any mathematical analysis, I think it's safe to say that the U.S., by modern standards, in 1863 was a very small country, despite the fact that it already covered a whole continent. But the casualty statistics from the war between the states are staggering, considering that total population, north and south, military and civilian, of only 31 million. A full 360,000 northern soldiers sacrificed their lives in the service of the Northern cause. And among the Confederates, 260,000 died. Nearly half a million combined north and south returned home after Appomattox with serious injuries. On the administration of President Lincoln in Washington City to recognize Southern Confederacy and their independence and end hostilities. You may be under the mistaken impression that the South was fighting to conquer the North. Nothing could be further from the truth. They were fighting for their independence in a righteous colonies began in 1861, Southerners were proud to bear the label rebel put upon them by their northern opponents. Because rebel, after all, is what King George III had called George Washington and the Patriots back in 1776. About the Southern cause, all wrapped up not only in states' rights, but also the prickly issue of slavery.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, even though we are stopped here in paradise, we do ask all passengers to please remain fully inside the cars for us at all times. Do not attempt to walk between cars or stand on end platforms.
The Philadelphia and Columbia first opened this line in 1834, and in 1857 it became an integral part of the Pennsylvania Railroad. In February of 1861, amid the seismic secession crisis, a train carrying President-elect Abraham Lincoln stopped here along the Pennsy Main Line on its way from Springfield, Illinois, to his inauguration in Washington City. He stepped out onto an end platform just long enough to greet the assembled crowd and introduce to them his wife, Mary Todd. 4 bloody years later, his funeral train passed through here in the opposite direction on its sad final journey to the mystic realm of martyrdom and myth. During those years in between, Lincoln waged an epic war, our Civil War, to save the Union, and eventually, at the prodding of Frederick Douglass and others, to free the slaves. Upending the social order north and south, and filling the land with cemeteries. And when the armies, blue and gray, savaged each other yet again around Gettysburg in July of '63, thousands more filled row on row of early graves. By these, that November, Lincoln rose at the dedication to help his listeners bear the unbearable. But in an era when audiences expected and welcomed long-winded, florid speech-making, Lincoln's brief remarks were a disappointment. Notably, though, the renowned orator Edward Everett of Massachusetts, who spoke at length before Lincoln had his turn, confided to him that he, the president, in 2 minutes had better captured the true significance of the occasion than he himself had done in 2 hours. While few at the time agreed with Everett, posterity has since come around to his view. And Lincoln's Gettysburg Address is today among the most famous rhetorical pieces in all of U.S. history. Better known than even his towering second inaugural. Here, then, are the words Lincoln might have delivered not far from this very spot, had the bridge over the Susquehanna not burned and the armies collided right here.
87 years ago, our fathers brought forth to this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation, so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate. We cannot consecrate. We cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here, dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. And we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from this earth.
Welcome to Lemon Place, PA, where the Strasburg Railroad meets Amtrak's high-speed Keystone Corridor. The Philadelphia and Columbia first opened this line in 1834.
look out my window, I'm hearing all this wind firing.
That's the way you've been
Not
thinking.
just see a bunch of people die like we did and everything. It's not a joke.
In the summer of 1863, there was nothing at all obvious about the way the events of the war would play out.
Edwin?
Yeah. 1863. General Lee's army
I think these people are making you
the Confederates had won a steady string of victory
A short
after
moment that I've
victory.
known you seem quite simple.
Over numerically superior Union forces.
Try not to get him.
There were growing voices across the northern states urging President Lincoln and his administration to negotiate a peace settlement with the Confederate States of America and recognize the independence they clearly were willing to fight to the death to support.
Definitely not a spy. I don't want to. Not a spy. I want to make that perfectly clear.
Northerners generally never expected this kind of ferocious fight out of their southern brethren.
Report back of what happened. Yeah, kind of. It starts to be like something like on, so just in here. Many just gonna remember that for the past couple of
Just
weeks.
as the
Until I have to report
Northern
it back to my boss.
had disastrously underestimated the fighting resolve of Southerners, the South had, for its own part,
I tried to put a gun in my head and my fingers were
willpower of the North. Not to mention its
But I had to be
overwhelming
drafted, so
industrial
either
superiority.
take this job or jail it is.
And field huge armies with the latest equipment and the ability to reset off American So in a nutshell, man, in a word then, by the summer, by June of 1863, nothing about the outcome of the war was certain.
Hey, Sam, there's that guy. There's that guy you were trying to find, right? Oh, right.
Even with the Mississippi River almost entirely by June of 63, the Union naval
Oh, yeah, that's probably good. That's quite all right.
This whole thing has been like this for quite a while. 6 years now.
Well, do you know the name of this town? Is that
Yes. My father and I run the blacksmith, just in town. Yes, an old injury. I was helping someone who had fallen into a river, and there was a straight piece of metal. I really wish I could be out there helping them, but they didn't let me in. Right. It's all right. We're doing what we can, you know. What was your name again? Next week.
I would say
work itself out in the summer.
been here ever since. It's close to the area, so that's why they made both sides of this battle specifically. Look. Hi. I would hope so. I almost got killed. I was literally in the car and I could hear the cannon fire in my ear. I'm just glad I'm out alive because I didn't get like no shot of that fire. Yeah, very, very loud indeed. Well, if they would have warned me about that, maybe I would have considered a little bit. But here I am. You're like it is.
president, in fact, did prevent the Civil War because the sections were at peace. Hostilities began only after he left office. Certainly, he can't be held to account for things that happened on someone else's watch. Now, if you're still unconvinced, 1 o'clock today, 3 p.m. also in the theater, stop in and hear what the President of the Union has to say himself. He's on the truth. Thank you all for joining us here today on our offering to help us reimagine the summer of '63.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, as we are approaching Strasburg Station, please do us a favor and remain seated for all times and stop. When crossing railroad tracks, please make sure to stop, look, and listen. If you hear or see a train, it is best to stop and wait it out. This very lesson could very well save your life today in the future. We'd like to thank you for riding the train Thursday. We ask you one simple question. Next time you travel, why not take the train? East Strasburg Station. End of the line. All